This really happened to me, and I wish it didn't. I'm telling it now because the years taught me that keeping quiet only lets the wrong people keep the microphone. They had a family group chat without me. I learned it at my mom's 62nd birthday in our little brick apartment off Ferry Street in Newark's Ironbound. My hands sticky with buttercream and sweat as I hovered over the cake with a serrated knife. The living room air was warm with the smell of garlic from the bacalhau my Aunt Lydia had insisted on bringing from Ciabra's. And everyone was squeezed in. Cousins on armrests, uncles in folding chairs, kids on the carpet, the TV flashing the Yankees game muted. "Send that to the chat," my sister Elena said after I lit the candles, and there was a ripple of grins that slid right past me. "Not that chat, Elle," Vince, our cousin, laughed, flicking his phone screen so fast the glare hit the knife blade in my hand. "The real one." If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. Mom's apartment sits above a bakery that's 3 doors down, from a Portuguese social club where old men play cards all day. You can hear them through the summer, the rise and fall of voices like a tide, which is how my childhood felt, pulled between people who never left Newark and my own tide that tugged me inland to places with names like Lady Bird Lake and South Congress. But back then, that night, I was just the daughter with the knife and the candles and the complicated relationship with her family's idea of support. We did the singing, and I cut the cake, and the phones came out like they do in any other American living room. It wasn't until Mom leaned her shoulder into mine, just a feather-light touch that meant everything and nothing, that I noticed the screen Elena flashed to Aunt Lydia had a thread title that made my chest go hot. It read, "Family, no Maya," a pin emoji next to it. 89 unread. Elena looked up and caught my eyes. Her face didn't move, but the smallest smile tugged after she locked the screen. If smugness had a scent, it would have been her expensive vanilla perfume mixing with the powdered sugar dusting my fingers. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I had work to think about. I'd flown in from Austin the night before because Mom is the person who gets me, no matter what else gets messy. And because she was proudly pretending not to know that I've been building a startup that most of the family still calls your little app. It isn't an app. It's a platform. There's a difference. But if I've learned anything, it's that some people will call anything they don't understand little to make their own lives feel grander. I set down the knife. "Pose," I said brightly into the room, because on that night I decided to be the director who tells everyone where to stand. I arranged them around the tiny dining table with its lace runner, made Vince stand behind Mom so she'd be slightly taller without noticing, shifted the kids away from the candles so nobody singed their hair. 1, 2, and the chorus of 3 came soft and sharp and sweet. Flash, laughs. I texted the photo to Mom. The whole time, Elena's phone kept lighting up, and I watched her thumb do that quick. Practice dance I used to think only meant she was busy. Now it felt like she was knitting a net I wasn't supposed to feel until it tightened. When I finally sat with a slab of cake on a flimsy paper plate, my ex, Gabe, texted me. We hadn't spoken in months, not since I put the startup ahead of our mismatched plans. His MBA dreams in Boston and my stubborn Austin lease with a view of a bus stop. His text read, "You okay?" Saw something weird. I stared at it across the frosting. It's funny how quickly the smell of sugar can go sour. I pocketed my phone and went to sit with Mom on the narrow balcony that looks down on Ferry Street, where headlights tunnel into the night and reggaeton beats jump from one car to another like sparks. Mom tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "My girl," she said, the way she did when I brought home honor roll certificates or when I cried after not making varsity softball. "How's Austin?" "Austin's good," I said, which was true in the way a forecast that says scattered showers is true. My apartment off South Congress was small but bright, my days defined by the cafeteria coffee at Capitol Factory and the hum of other founders riding the edge of possibility and oblivion. My company Relay Home was a marketplace for urgent home repairs. Vetted electricians, roofers, plumbers with real ratings, a schedule now button that spared people the phone tag panic that turns a leak into a catastrophe. We'd done a pilot in Hyde Park with a dozen homeowners and 6 contractors, and I had real revenue numbers, tiny but not imaginary. And yet, and your sister? Mom asked softly. She'd noticed the moment with the phone. She always noticed, and her eyes held the same kindness they held when I was 6, and tried to bake cookies without a recipe, and made a mess that tasted like salt and baking soda. She's fine, I said. I said it because it was easier than saying, she made a group chat without me, and named it like a sorority initiation, and I feel 12 again, standing outside a closed door. But my mouth had that dry feeling it gets right before I knock on a door anyway. From inside, Aunt Lydia's voice rose, the timbre that gets loud when she's sure the right people agree with her. Elena's brand deals are up, she was saying. She's flying to Miami, to LA, to Austin next week, actually. What's that hotel near South Congress? The one with the green tile? South Congress Hotel. She's at a rooftop there. So proud. Influencing is a real job, Elena chimed with a laugh. Someone has to make sunscreen look cool. It's not that I wasn't proud of her. Elena had always had a camera-ready face and a sixth sense for what people clicked on. She was the one who could sell white t-shirts like they were tickets to salvation. I was the one who used to pretend my chemistry set in the basement could turn Newark tap water into gold. We were different. It didn't have to be war. The problem is, families love war when someone like Lydia is bored. I took another bite of cake I couldn't taste and checked my phone again. Another text, this time from an Austin number I didn't recognize. Saw that thread. Didn't realize your family felt that way. Pain is weird. Sometimes it asserts itself not as a shout, but like a fire alarm you only hear in the back of your brain. I put the phone down. Let's go to Tops after? Mom whispered, conspiratorial, because she knows there's no crisis that a late-night Monte Cristo at Tops Diner can't make marginally better. Listening to the hiss of griddles and watching the fluorescent clock ease toward midnight had gotten me through college applications, a sprained ankle, my first real breakup. We would sit in a red booth and make fun of the names of milkshakes and decide that whatever hurt could be addressed with eggs and coffee. Yeah, I said. Let's. I took the dishes to the sink. Elena stood beside me, so close the sleeves of our sweaters brushed, and that's when she spoke without looking up. You know how you get, she said, her voice pitched for just me, as if she were handing me a secret in a crowd. You get intense. It's not personal. The chat's for practical stuff. Practical like... I turned the faucet on too hard, sending a spray up that spotted my glasses. The lemon dish soap smell cut through the sugar. Like organizing, she said. Like Grandma's house. Like who's bringing what to Thanksgiving. We don't need you turning everything into a TED Talk. I ran the sponge in hard circles. Got it, I said. It's just practical. Like keeping me out. She sighed. That long-suffering exhale that's the soundtrack of people who believe they are experts at your flaws. Don't be dramatic, May. You're in Texas. You're busy. It's easier without a million opinions. Right, I said quietly. Easier. Vince leaned against the doorframe, his tie loosened, his grin as lazy as his trust fund. Hey, if your app needs a brand ambassador, I can get you a friends and family rate, he said. We'll post a reel, make you go viral. Lydia says you need to think bigger. I'm thinking big enough, I said. And when I rinsed the plate, the water came away cloudy. Later, in the booth at Tops Diner under the neon glow, Mom stirred her coffee and said, You don't have to be okay with it. Outside, 18-wheelers rumbled toward the Pulaski Skyway, and inside, teenagers took prom night selfies while a cop ordered a cheeseburger at the counter. I know, I said, and I did. But if you grow up the peacekeeper, you get very good at pretending you don't care about doors that shut behind your back. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my fingers. You are building... She paused, searching for the right word. A life. Don't let them crowd it. You hear me? I hear you, I said. Somewhere in my purse, the phone buzzed again. I didn't look. By the time I got back to Austin the next day, Newark to Austin Bergstrom, window seat, the kind of flight where the clouds look like you could step out and walk a mile across them, I'd told myself a story about how the group chat was nothing. I swore I would bury the sting under code reviews and customer calls, under demo days and the peculiar buzz of the South by Southwest crowd that had begun seeping into the city early. I went straight from the airport to Capitol Factory and drank gritty coffee from a paper cup that said "Dream Big" in a font that tried too hard. That afternoon, I pitched a small angel group that met on the third floor near a mural of a longhorn skull wrapped in a neon ribbon. I stood, palms open, the way the coach taught us at the free Founders Friday workshop. Relay Home is where homeowners find vetted pros for urgent repairs, I said. We cut the time from panic to appointment from days to minutes, and we cut scams by enforcing real identity for contractors. We're starting in Austin with expansion to San Antonio and Dallas this year. Questions came. Do you have repeat usage? What's your CSE? And I had answers I'd rehearsed in my shower, in my car, whispering at the H-E-B produce aisle like the apples needed Series A money. And then a guy in a tight blazer I'd seen on local tech podcasts, let's call him Kellen, leaned back and said, "So what happens when word on the street is your founder is difficult?" He said it with that grin men get when they think they've slid a knife between your ribs while making it look like a handshake. "What street is that?" I asked, steady. He tapped his phone lightly. "I don't know, group chats, family, people talk." The fire alarm in the back of my brain deafened me. "We're focused on customers, not gossip," I said. "And customers keep booking." I smiled so my jaw wouldn't. We wrapped, and they said they'd be in touch, which is code for nothing. I walked outside onto the shaded stretch of Congress, where the Capitol dome sits like a postcard at the end of the street, and I leaned against the limestone facade and finally checked my phone. The unknown Austin number had sent a screenshot. It was a cropped image of a messages thread header. "Family, no Maya." Below it, a bubble. "Elena. My sister's doing her little app in Austin. LOL, hope it lasts longer than the keto phase." Another bubble. "Vince. Anyone got that meme of the house on fire? Slap that relay thing on it." "Aunt Lydia. Investors should know she can be combative. Remember how she blew up at Thanksgiving?" Crying laugh emoji. The timestamp made my stomach drop. 10 minutes before I'd pitched, the messages had pinged. The sender wrote, "Sorry." Someone forwarded me this thinking I was another Vince in the chat. "Thought you should know." I sat on the curb where the shade ended and the Texas sun began, and I felt the two worlds I'd been balancing, Newark and Austin, split like a pane of glass. I could hear the hiss of a bus kneeling to let someone on, the buzz of a scooter skimming past, and over it all, my own breath, steady because I made it steady. It wasn't just a chat to knock me from the big table at dinner. They had decided I was a punchline in the exact minutes I'd been asking strangers to believe in me. At home that night, I ate refrigerated H-E-B sushi at my counter, the kind with the too sweet eel sauce, and opened my laptop. I typed "family, no Maya" into the notes app like if I named it, I could control it. I scrolled through my messages with Elena and realized the blue and gray bubbles had been thin and formal since last fall. When I told her I wasn't flying to Miami for her brand launch because we were doing a pilot with actual homeowners in Travis Heights who had a real pipe burst. Gabe texted again. "You good? That looked brutal." We hadn't spoken since late November, when he argued that moving to Boston with him would be practical because my startup could be anywhere, and I'd said very calmly that if he didn't understand place, he didn't understand me. I stared at his name on my screen like it was a map of exits I had missed. I answered, "I'm fine." Then, "No, I'm not," he called. I let it ring out. Then I called him back, because loneliness is an animal that crawls onto the couch beside you no matter how busy you are. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, May," he said. and the sound of his voice hit me like the first bite of something that tastes like childhood. Do you want me to say something stupid like it'll all blow over? Don't, I said. I don't want it to blow over. I want to know what it is. He was quiet. Do you ever think maybe the problem with your family isn't a problem you can solve? He asked softly. Like maybe it's a weather pattern. You bring an umbrella. I'm tired of being wet, I said. The next morning, I ran the trail around Ladybird Lake, the one where you can see the kayaks drift like bright commas between sentences of skyline, and I made a decision I told nobody. I booked a flight back to Newark for the following weekend. Before I boarded, I texted Grandma and asked if I could come by to help her with her iPad. I told her I wanted to back up her photos. That was true. What I didn't tell her is that I wanted to see what notifications lit up when she set the iPad down on her crocheted blanket and went to make tea. If that sounds sneaky, it's because revenge stories don't start with perfect people. They start with people who are tired of being held outside closed doors. When I landed at Newark Liberty, my phone buzzed again. Elena, hey you, random Q, what's that nice coffee place on South Congress? She added a heart. The perfumed kind of sisterliness. It stung the way perfume does a cut. I typed back, Joe's Coffee. And then I put my phone on airplane mode, although I was already on the ground. I grabbed my carry-on. I walked toward baggage claim where the big murals of Jersey legends stare down at you like they know you better than you know yourself. As the door slid open to the humid New Jersey afternoon, I realized there was a bigger storm inside our family than a group chat without me. And if I was going to step into it, I needed proof. I needed leverage. I needed the part of myself that had learned to turn leaks into scheduled repairs to turn a leak in trust into something I could fix. At Grandma's house in Kearney, a tight, two-story with a porch that sags politely toward the sidewalk, she hugged me with flour on her hands from the dough. She was rolling for pastel de nata. My May, she said, accent soft around my name, and she pressed my face between her palms like she could shape me into the good daughter from clay. The iPad was on the doily-covered coffee table, case cracked, stickers bubbling at the corners. It is slow, she said. You make it fast. I'll try, I said, and when she shuffled to the kitchen to pour water into the kettle, I tapped the home button. Messages bloomed onto the screen like a bruise. Family. No Maya. Grandma had been added as a courtesy, I guess, or perhaps for cover, because who would suspect the sweetest person in the family was anywhere near the room where jokes got mean? My fingers hovered. There's a kind of line you cross and then cross again, an ethical hairline fracture you tell yourself you'll mend later. I crossed it. I opened the thread. The newest messages were stupid. Vince tagging a meme. Elena sending a boomerang of wine at some rooftop in Williamsburg. Aunt Lydia's running commentary about property values in Jersey City. We should sell Mom's house while rates are what they are. Then a pinned message I had to scroll to see. It was a Google Drive link. Folder for docs resale, Lydia had typed. We'll loop in Elena, Vince, me, and Uncle Raoul. Keep this clean. No reason to bring in everyone. The capitals were not an accident. My heart beat in my mouth. Grandma's house, the sagging porch, the kitchen with the yellow gingham curtains. That wasn't just a house. That was where my father had taped my kindergarten drawings to the fridge, and where we'd eaten soup from bowls too hot to hold in winter blackouts. I had always assumed we'd decide as a family what to do with it when the time came. I had always assumed I was part of we. The tea kettle screamed. I took a screenshot and airdropped it to my phone so fast my fingers shook. From the kitchen, Grandma said, "Do you want lemon?" And I said, "Yes," like a person in a different room in a different life. Don't tell, a new message popped up then. It was Elena. Maya makes everything a debate, and she'll try to lawyer this. Let's just move ahead and give her something after. The something hung like a thread over a fire. My lips went cold. Give her something after. My sister had decided I would get crumbs from a table I helped set. I didn't feel 12. I felt like steel coming into dangerous shape in a furnace. And that's when the iPad, traitorous and kind, showed me something else. A message from last November when I told Gabe I couldn't go to Boston. Elena had written, "She'll get over it. She always does. She'll pick a new project. She always does. Vince, put her on mute long enough and she moves on. Lydia, exactly. We manage. We manage." I heard my own voice say, "No, you don't." And I wasn't talking to the kettle anymore. Grandma returned with 2 mugs and a plate of still warm pastéis, the tops blistered and perfect. "You look angry," she said, not unkindly. "Tell me." "I'm going to fix your iPad," I said, because the truth felt like a grenade, and I wasn't ready to pull the pin in her living room. "And I'm going to fix something else." "Good," she said. "Fixing is your gift." I looked down at the glow of the iPad, at the thread that had thought it was smarter than me, at the pin I would soon remove, and felt something in me click from soft to sharp. It was the sound of a serrated knife hitting a plate. It was the sound of an umbrella closing because someone decided to walk into the rain on purpose. It was the sound of a plan beginning. The morning I took Grandma to the Essex County Surrogate's Court, the sky over Newark had that flat pewter color that makes the courthouse's limestone look like bone. The Hall of Records on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard has a set of seals on the facade, archives, deeds, wills, words that look like the buttons you can push to straighten out a crooked life. I parked Grandma's Corolla in a metered spot and helped her out as she grumbled that we should have just taken the 1 bus because parking is robbery. She wore her best navy cardigan and clutched her purse like it had the remainder of our family's decency inside it. "Today is information," I told her, because I'd learned not to promise victories, only truth. "We ask for a copy of the deed, the power of attorney, anything they filed to list your house. We get dates, names, signatures. We start there." Inside, the metal detector beeped for my keys. The guard waved me through after a second look at Grandma, who smiled in a way that turned the morning soft. We found the surrogate's window, where a woman with glasses on a beaded chain said, "You want the records room, hun, around the corner, down the steps." The records room smelled like paper and old ink, like 3rd grade when I thought anything written in a ledger could never be wrong. A clerk printed out the deed for the house in Kearney. The power of attorney Grandma had signed after Grandpa died. The will he'd notarized at the DMV, because immigrants will go anywhere that stamps things, and a copy of a listing agreement I didn't expect to see but did, right there. Black ink staking out a future for our past. The listing agreement had Aunt Lydia's elegant, loopy signature where it said, "Seller's Authorized Representative." It had a date from 2 weeks ago. It had a commission number circled in the margin like someone had wanted to remember what exactly was in it for them. It named the brokerage where Lydia sometimes did consulting. It did not have my mother's name, though she and Lydia were co-executors of Grandpa's will. It did not have Grandma's signature anywhere. "Is this legal?" Grandma whispered, tracing the line with a finger that smelled faintly of egg custard from the pastéis we'd eaten that morning. "It's bold," I said, "and it's enough to slow them down." I'd already made an appointment with a lawyer who rented an office across from the Orange NJ transit stop, a woman named Martinez who wore her hair in a bun like it had to be argued with. She asked us for the chat screenshots. She asked me if I was ready for the fight to come with them all gathered in a room. She underlined words like undue influence and fiduciary duty. She used the phrase elder financial exploitation without blinking. "We can file for a temporary restraining order on any sale," she said, and the way she said temporary made it sound like a crowbar wedged between a stuck window and the frame. "Do it," I said. And then, because stories like ours don't end with one form filed, I said, "And I want to send a demand letter to the brokerage. There's defamation too, interference with my business. It might not stick, but they should know I have teeth." "Teeth are good," Martinez said, and she smiled. The kind that showed she knew exactly where to bite. In the days that followed, We found out what the inside of a skirmish feels like. Lydia called my mother and wailed that I was escalating something harmless. Elena texted me a glassy paragraph about how this was getting dramatic, and no one is trying to hurt Grandma. You're just in Texas a lot, and we needed to move. Quickly. Vince posted a story on Instagram about how family should be private under a photo of a wine bottle that cost $200 and tasted like making mistakes. I tried not to answer in rage. I answered with copies of what we had. I answered with dates. I answered with the line, "The court has ordered a pause. Any further attempt to list or convey will be considered in violation," and then put my phone down flat on the table like I'd set a chess piece where it belonged. But the thing about family is that their confidence doesn't always come from facts. It comes from habit. It comes from the idea that they've seen you cry over a B+, and therefore your arguments in adulthood must be the same shape as your childhood tears. They will tell you you're making a scene when the scene is the only way to get a seat at the table they built without you. They kept going. Lydia invited Grandma to brunch at Brownstone Diner in Jersey City and forgot that the realtor would be there. Elena accidentally sent me a Pinterest board of staging ideas for small older homes, like she'd put a bow on Betrayal. I waited outside the brownstone in my car and watched Grandma walk in on my arm and watched Lydia's smile bend when she saw me. "Oh," she said, syrupy. "Maya, you're so busy. Surprised you could make time." "Court made the time," I said, and I watched the color change under her makeup. When I flew back to Austin after the restraining order was in place, I did the unlock sequence for my apartment on autopilot and went straight to my desk where a stack of pitch decks and manila folders looked like a short skyline. I stared at my whiteboard where I'd written Q3 partial rollout to San Antonio, press it cut, contractor onboarding events at Home Depot South Park Meadows. My mind was tired of court terms and group chat poison. It wanted the clear geometry of product roadmaps. It wanted the absolute mercy of code, so I wrote. I rewrote the contractor onboarding flow so a plumber named Rudy in San Antonio could sign up in 8 minutes without calling me. I ironed out the bug that made a homeowner's address autocorrect to a street in Round Rock. I added a sanity check screen that required 2 photos of a problem before booking so we could match the right pro the first time, even if the client didn't know what to call the thing that was broken. I pitched a reporter at the Austin American-Statesman with the subject line, "Local startup cuts emergency repair response times in half. Meet the founder from Newark, NJ." He replied in 12 minutes. "Coffee at Joe's?" We met in the shadow of the "I Love You So Much" mural on South Congress, tourists taking selfies in a parade of coupleship behind us. I told him what it feels like to watch water come through a ceiling and not know if you're about to be scammed. I told him about Mrs. Duarte in Hyde Park who used Relay Home twice in 2 months for 2 different emergencies and had cried on the phone because she didn't have to beg someone to show up. I did not tell him about the family chat. That part would have made it a different story, gossip, not product. He ran the piece on a Sunday. 2 angel investors who had ignored my last updates wrote back within an hour. One was Kellen in the tight blazer, who said, "Impressive traction. Would love to revisit." I wrote, "Happy to reopen. By the way, I remember your comment about rumors. I prefer to let numbers speak." He deferred graciously. Money always forgives itself. In the same week, a new Austin partnership manager at a big box hardware chain emailed to say they wanted to pilot a Book a Pro window at the checkout in 2 stores. A developer who'd left Indeed asked if we were hiring engineers. A condo association in San Antonio wanted a volume discount. It felt like running downhill toward a horizon I could finally see. That was the week Elena tried to post a sponsored video about a smart thermostat with a caption that read, "Home stuff is hard. Imagine having a platform that does it all for you." She tagged a relayhome.app and used our logo without permission. Half the comments were her followers saying, "Where can we get this?" The other half were industry people asking, "Is this DAR ad properly disclosed?" I DM'd her, "Please remove the tag. Do not use our brand in your content." She replied, "Relax, I'm helping you." I sent a formal cease and desist that my friend Casey, who'd turned contracts into a hobby, helped me write. She posted a TikTok about haters who don't understand, how brand synergy works, and a week later, emailed me a bulleted list of the ways she could drive top of funnel awareness for your little platform. At the bottom, she wrote, or at least give me a referral link, LOL. Maybe this is the place where you imagine I exploded. I didn't. My energy had other uses. The first contractor onboarding at the South Park Meadows Home Depot drew 27 electricians and plumbers. We promised $50 gift cards to the first 15 who completed verification. In the fluorescent light, under the smell of cut lumber, I shook hands until my shoulder ached and heard the same sentence over and over from men and women in branded polo shirts. If you can keep the tire kickers away, I'm in. That night, my cousin Layla, my quiet ally, the one who had sat beside me on the floor at family parties when we were 8 and ate too many brigadeiros, texted me a screen recording. In the family, no Maya chat, a new thread had started under a pinned message that read, Intervention. They had planned to gather Grandma, my mother, Elena, Lydia, and Uncle Raul at Seabra's Mariscara. The plan was to present a united front, insist that Grandma's house was a burden, that Maya is overwhelmed running her app thing and should focus on Austin, that they would sell for her own good. There were bullet points. There were contingency plans if I showed up. There was a line that read, worst case, we acknowledge we listed too soon, apologize, and proceed after a cooling off period. I stared at the bullets like they were a map to an ambush. I didn't forward the video to my lawyer. Not yet. I booked a table for 6 at Seabra's at the same time using a different name and texted my mother. Please be there. Bring Grandma. Trust me. My mother sent back a single blue heart. The night of the intervention that wasn't. The iron-bound smelled like roasted garlic and clam broth. A comfort and a clenched fist at once. The waiter led me to a table in the corner where I could see the door. Grandma arrived on my mother's arm. They looked like the before and after of a life well lived. Then the others came in. Lydia in a cream blazer like she was hosting a TV show. Elena with glossy hair and a shirt that said "Be kind" in loopy script. Vince in a linen jacket that dared the sauce to splash it. Uncle Raul looked tired, which he always did when he agreed with the wrong side and knew it. We ordered caldo verde and grilled octopus, because rituals survive wars. Then Lydia folded her napkin and got into formation. We love you, she began, and already my teeth were cold. We want what's best for the family. The house is too much. It's old. It needs repairs. How about we relieve you of that burden? We'll handle everything. You can stay with me while I put my phone on the table and pressed play. The screen recording Layla had sent filled the table with text bubbles. Intervention. They watched their words march like ants across granite. Elena went pale. Lydia smiled wider, the way people do when their mask begins to crack and they hope teeth will pass as sincerity. Apologies if this feels dramatic, I said softly. I prefer paper, but sometimes phones make better mirrors. Who sent you that? Elena whispered. Someone who has a better idea of family than you do, I said. A reminder, the court has ordered a pause on the sale. Any further step is a violation. So is trying to isolate Grandma to get her agreement. So is using your license, Lydia, in a way that looks like undue influence. There's a file with your brokerage's compliance officer now. There's a hearing next Tuesday. If you're so sure I'm overreacting, bring your paperwork. I'll bring mine. Lydia's laugh was the sound of a glass pushed too hard across a table. You wouldn't, she said. I already did, I said. And one more thing, the chat about me. The one where you told each other to mute me long enough and I'd move on. I won't move on from Grandma. Not this time. I am hard to mute now. We ate our octopus. The waiter refilled waters and eyed our table like he'd seen more families than he could count do math like this, and he'd learned to let the arithmetic run its course. When the plates were cleared, Grandma lifted her chin and said, I will not be moved like furniture. Her voice could have cut tile. You will not move me by making plans without me. You will not move my house like it is a toy. I am not old wood you can sell for parts. Uncle Raoul's face crumpled. Ma, he said, and there it was, the boy who lives under every grown man's suit. We went to court the following Tuesday. The judge was a woman with a haircut that said, I make time for essentials only. She read the filings. She asked pointed questions. She looked at the screenshots reluctantly, but looked. And then she extended the restraining order and set a full hearing on the merits. The broker's compliance department emailed Lydia that afternoon to say she was suspended pending review for failure to document seller authority. I wish I could tell you that was the end. It wasn't, but it was the part of the story where the ground tilted our way. In Austin, Relay Home became something heavier than a little app. The hardware chain's pilot grew to 4 stores. The Austin Condo Association referred us to a property management company in San Antonio that sent us 15 buildings and a migraine worth of logistics and then praised us in a quarterly newsletter until I cried in my car by Ladybird. Lake like a person who loves spreadsheets too much. A local morning show asked me to come on and talk about how you took on scams and built something useful. I wore a navy blazer that made me look like a person who owned a stapler and not just a dream. It was after that TV segment that my phone pinged with 3 messages, one after another, like they were choreographed. Vince, Yoka's, any ops roles? My firm cut my hours. I'd be amazing at, partnerships. Aunt Lydia. I'm taking a pause from the brokerage, thinking of pivoting to operations consulting for startups. Happy to help you streamline, Elena. Proud of you. Ignore the noise. If you need social strategy or content, I can run your whole funnel. Think we could maybe hop on a call? I stared at the screen like it had turned my past into a job application in my present. I was in the Relay Home office, a subleased corner of a co-working space on East 6th with a hand-me-down ficus that refused to die. The window looked out on a mural of a bat with a halo. My operations manager, Kayla, who used to run events at Austin City Limits and had learned to manage chaos with a smile, set a cup of coffee on my desk and said, Your face just did a full weather pattern. Cousin Storm, I said. You okay? She asked. I'm consistent, I said, because consistency is the opposite of the person they thought I was. I need to send 3 polite no's. I wrote back to Vince first. Thanks for thinking of us. We're not hiring for partnerships right now. If we were, it would require prior experience with B2B contracts and property management. Wishing you the best. I wrote to Lydia. We've engaged a legal team and an ops consultant with domain experience. Given the conflict of interest with the listing, we won't be working together. To Elena, I wrote, We're keeping marketing in-house for now. Also, please confirm removal of any content using our brand. She wrote back a single period. Then, you really gonna hold a grudge? I'm going to hold a boundary, I typed. You taught me how. The next time I flew to Newark, I drove straight from the airport to Grandma's. The porch still sagged politely, and the ginger cat that belonged to nobody, and everybody blinked at me from the steps. Inside, the living room smelled like lemon oil and Fox News, because Uncle Raoul still insisted the weather on Channel 5 was the most accurate even when the weatherman got the season wrong. There was a new handrail on the stairs that a Relay Home contractor named Jorge had installed at my insistence, and a leak in the upstairs bathroom that had haunted us for years had finally been fixed by a roofer who didn't ghost Grandma because our platform had rules about accountability and pictures and post-job check-ins. Mom came out of the kitchen with a dish towel over her shoulder and kissed my cheek. You look like Austin, she said, which I knew meant sunlight and a little tired. Grandma handed me a pastel de nata on a paper napkin and said, You look like a girl who brings a toolbox. I sat on the couch and my mother pulled out her phone and showed me a new thread. Family, yes, Maya, just like that. Not a joke, not a trap, just a set of words that felt like a window opened in a house that had been too hot for too long. Not everyone was in it. Not everyone had to be. The messages were boring on purpose. Photos of kids, grocery lists, a debate about the best way to clean a rug. I took a breath like I'd been underwater and had finally found the surface. That night, we went to Top's Diner. The neon clock hummed. The waitress recognized us and brought coffee before we asked. A couple in prom clothes took selfies in the mirror behind the counter. "Tell me something," Grandma said when the Monte Cristo slid onto the table, a gleam of powdered sugar like fresh snow. "If they ever say sorry, what will you say?" "I hope they do," I said. "No one should be shut out forever." I looked at my mother, who had been a hinge between all of us her whole life, and felt the ache of that roll in my chest. "But sorry is not a key. It's an apology. The door is a different thing." Grandma said, approving, and she bit into the sandwich like she had personally invented breakfast. The hearing on the merits happened on a Wednesday 2 months later. By then, Lydia's suspension from the brokerage was permanent. She'd agreed to a quiet resignation to avoid a noisier review. The judge appointed a neutral third party to review any future decisions about the house with Grandma's explicit input. Elena had posted a YouTube video titled, "Let's Talk About Accountability," in which she cried pretty and said nothing. And 3 of her brand deals had quietly sunsetted when they realized her comments were full of Newark cousins who don't forget. Vince had decamped to Miami and started a podcast. Uncle Raoul, bless him, learned how to text with punctuation and sent me photos of Grandma's new handrail, as if I didn't know exactly how many screws held it. In Austin, Relay Home closed a small but clean seed round from investors who cared about boring things like unit economics and how fast we could add pros without breaking the system. We opened a tiny Newark operations desk above the bakery on Ferry Street, 3 doors down from the social club where the old men play cards. I hired Layla to run it, because she'd always been the best at listening for the piece of information you actually needed. On the first day in that Newark desk, I stood by the window and watched the street move. Kids in school uniforms, a woman hauling a sack of rice on her hip, a man walking a dog that looked like a cloud had decided to learn to sit. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. "It was Elena. Can we talk?" she said when I answered. Her voice was smaller than the one she used to sell the world. "Off the record. No screenshots, just me." "I'm listening," I said. "I didn't think it would hurt you," she said. "The chat. The jokes. It was a bad habit. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry about the house. I got swept up. I like winning. I didn't realize the scoreboard was pointed at you." I pressed my forehead to the window pane until the glass cooled the heat behind my eyes. "It wasn't just pointed at me," I said. "It was pointed at Grandma, at Mom, at the idea that we have to learn to be a family again without making someone the punchline." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I'm looking for work. If there's anything," there it was, the sentence that the title of my story promised like a thunderclap on a blue sky day. I felt equal parts pity and vindication. Both were real. Both were mine. "I think the best thing I can offer you right now," I said slowly, "is a door. Not a job. A door. To sit with me, with Mom, with Grandma, to talk like people who share a last name and a childhood and 100 dinners. To try again. Work is the easy part. Family is the advanced course. I don't want the easy part to be the only part," she said. And I heard for the first time in months my sister. Not her brand. Her. "Then come to dinner," I said. "Tonight, tops 10. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't revenge. It was the thing after both. The part where you rebuild a house with the right hands and keep the old beams because they're strong." When I hung up, I looked down at Ferry Street and saw my mother crossing toward the bakery with a bag of rolls. She glanced up like she'd felt my eyes and lifted the bag like a toast. I lifted my phone back. Before I left the office, I opened the original chat on my own screen, the one titled Family, No Maya, that had become a museum of mistakes. I scrolled to the first time they'd typed my name like a problem to be solved. I scrolled to the pinned folder with the plan to sell the house. I scrolled to the line about muting me until I moved on. Then I did the only thing I could think to do that felt like both an ending and a beginning. I turned off notifications, and the silence, for once, felt like I had finally chosen it. The end.